What if Italy annexed Ticino in 1934? You may think that nothing too much would change, but this move would result in the Allies to embargo Italy 2 years sooner, which would make Italy and Germany ally in 1934, potentially leading to Germany annexing Austria in 1934 as well. The Italians annexing Ticino could snowball to result in a stronger Axis powers, but would this be enough for them to win the Second World War? Regarding Italy annexing Ticino, this actually could have happened had the march on Bellinzona on the 25th of January 1934 been successful. Here is how this could have happened, but most importantly, how this would alter the Second World War. Nino Rezzino, a Ticino politician, was greatly influenced by Benito Mussolini, and in November 1933 he held a meeting with the Ticino ultranationalists in his villa in Ponza, near Lugano, where the Ticino Fascist Federation was founded. Believe it or not, this exact villa is currently up for sale for about $32.3 million, which is amazing detail to mention. Ironically, Konrad Adenauer, the West German Chancellor, also went there on holidays, but he didn't want to go to fascist Spain due to the regime there. Instead, he resided in the birthplace of Swiss fascism, an ideology that literally destroyed Germany. Guys, if you could simply give me $32 million so I can buy this exact villa and totally not start another angry movement there. Jokes aside, Italy could have annexed Ticino if the march on Bellinzona inspired by Benito Mussolini's march on Rome was successful. This could have happened had Nino Rezzonico worked closer with Arthur Fonias, who was a Ticino fascist and a brigadier colonel in the Swiss army, so via coup d'etat they could have taken over Ticino and united with Italy, which is exactly what they wanted. Benito Mussolini actually met with the two and supported them with money, but they seemed to be very incompetent. Additionally, the Italian speakers in Ticino didn't exactly want to join Italy, but preferred to stay in neutral Switzerland. If the Ticino fascists organized better, they could have succeeded. They formed in November 1933, and just 2 months later attempted the coup, which obviously failed, and even if it succeeded, the people didn't support it. So, with better organization and more Italian funding, they could be able to carry out this coup and seize the canton by force. Legally, they could leave and join Italy, but even if this is done illegally, the Swiss are unlikely to enter a war against Italy. They will protest this to the League of Nations, which as we all know with the case of Ethiopia wouldn't do anything. Thus, Italy would gain Ticino for free, antagonizing relations between them and the former Entente a lot sooner. This could happen in early 1934. It gives time for Italy to reconsider their position. Initially, despite Italy being ultranationalist, they were allied to France and Britain, but after this incident, this wouldn't be the case. Thus, Italy would become isolated a lot sooner, which means that they would seek an alliance with Germany a lot sooner as well. Italy and Germany initially were supposed to be enemies, and the Italians protected Austria during the July push in 1934, where the Germans almost got control over the entire country and tried to install a puppet government. Italy stepped up to protect Austria and Germany had to back down, as to avoid war with Italy. Engelbert Dollfuss was however eliminated during the July push. Historically, the July push happened in July 1934, so 6 months after Italy would annex Ticino in this alternate timeline. As the Italians would become internationally isolated, they can allow Germany to annex Austria in exchange for an alliance, just how they did in 1938 during the Anschluss. With Italy annexing Ticino in 1934, it could potentially snowball to Germany and Italy forming the Pact of Steel a lot sooner, but also Germany to puppet Austria, as they would put Anton Rintelen in charge of Austria, making it a satellite state. We can't ever know for sure if this would happen, but it's really possible. This is especially because Italy would plan to invade Ethiopia in 1935, so they would know that any relations that they would have with France and Britain would be doomed after that, giving them the need to ally with Germany or the Soviet Union, the latter of which is of course impossible. This is to say that if Italy doesn't ally with Germany, they would be left without any allies and be internationally isolated. Hence why Italy and Germany could ally in 1934, despite Italy giving up control over Austria. I think that this would result in Italy being in a slightly stronger position, as with Ticino they would have an additional 175,000 people and the Lugano industry, which was about the same as all of Sicily. As I said, the Italians would invade and annex Ethiopia. This wouldn't change in this scenario. Historically, Germany sent a bit of guns to Ethiopia as to counter Italy's expansion, but the two are now allies, so there is no need for that. France and Britain would of course fill in that gap, so the Second Italo-Abyssinian War would take about the same time and casualties. After that, Italy and Germany would be sanctioned by the League of Nations, and the two countries would choose to leave the League of Nations. You may think that Italy and Germany would be in a way stronger position, and considering the Allies' strategy of appeasement, as they weren't ready for war, the Axis may become even stronger. This is because France and Britain were scared to fight Germany, so they built up their army and sacrificed Austria and Czechoslovakia to buy more time. In this alternate history, appeasement can go further, as the Allies were too stubborn to fight Germany, and now Italy would also be their official ally, so the Allies need to buy even more time as to prepare for fighting Italy as well. This means that if the Allies don't do appeasement, they would have to fight also Italy, so theoretically it's actually possible for appeasement to go further. Of course, we can't know for sure, but this scenario is quickly becoming really interesting, as the Axis would be in a way stronger position. The German war machine getting Austria earlier would snowball greatly. The alternative is that the Allies start to rearm as soon as 1934, so appeasement can cease by 1938 if we keep up the exact same historical dates. I really cannot tell you how the Allies would react in this greater danger. Perhaps they would wake up earlier and decide to stop the ultranationals sooner, but I doubt it. Let me know in the comments what you think, but for the sake of this alternate history scenario, I would have them be even more stubborn, as they would not only have to prepare for Germany, but also Italy, potentially sacrificing more countries in the process as to buy time. Historically, when Germany was starting to remilitarize and violate the Treaty of Versailles, Poland expressed interest in invading Germany, and sought the support from France, Britain and America, which would pressure the two. In 1933, Poland mobilized an entire army and stationed it at Silesia, preparing to attack Germany. France and Britain responded to this, saying that they would attack Poland if the Poles decided to attack Germany first. This is exactly what allowed the Austrian painter to rise to power and not fear any repercussions, as France and Britain would literally protect him. This is, by the way, very controversial, as historians cannot agree if this is true or not, so keep that in mind. I am no time traveler, so I cannot tell you if this exactly happened or not. It might have happened or it might have not. Either way, it works great for this alternate history. Assuming that what I just said is true, historically, Poland and Germany signed a non-aggression pact on the 24th of January 1934, which is slightly after Italy would annex Ticino. This means that in 1934, Italy and Germany are free to do as they want, as their powerful neighbors wouldn't attack them. As Germany would puppet Austria, the Austrian goat would help Germany to remilitarize, and soon they would almost go bankrupt, so they would strive to expand into Czechoslovakia as well. I expect the Munich Conference to go in exactly the same way, as I predict that the Allies would be even more stubborn to attack, and the Munich Conference may even happen a lot sooner due to Germany getting Austria 4 years earlier. In the Munich Conference, Italy was historically also invited, so they would totally support Germany. So even if the Allies were more prepared in 1938, this conflict is likely still resolved in Germany's favor, which allows for Czechoslovakia to soon cease to exist. Switzerland in the meantime would also remilitarize, as they would fear the worst. In 1934 alone, they had lost the Italian-speaking Ticino, but also German-speaking Austria was reformed into a German satellite state, with the German Führer openly claiming that all Germans must be under one. Switzerland is majority German, so they would fear a German or even French invasion, so they would remilitarize like crazy as to deter anyone from attacking them. Appeasement would soon cease, as I assume that Poland is too valuable to lose, and the Allies would protect the Poles at any cost, even if they have to enter a war that they are not ready for. As Germany would be ready for a war a lot sooner, they can declare war on Poland in late 1938 or very early 1939, at least 9 months sooner as they did historically. In case you're wondering, it would happen sooner, as Austria's Industrian goat would snowball to grow the German army a lot quicker than it happened historically. These are the implications of Germany getting Austria sooner. I think it's fair to say that the Allies would be less prepared for this war, as it would happen about 1 year sooner, despite them remilitarizing quicker than they did in our own timeline. Poland would fall in exactly the same way, due to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and then the German might would be turned to the unprepared French. France would also have to fight Italy right at the start of the war, which would further strain their resources. Perhaps the Saarland campaign wouldn't happen. Italy historically joined only 12 days before France capitulated, but this time it's not the case, so France would have to man the entire border, making their fall perhaps quicker due to this, but also the war starting sooner. Even if the Allies prepare more for the war, due to these two facts, the French would still fall, if not even more disastrously as I just predicted. On average, all would happen the same way as in our history, but be 9 months earlier. This time, Italy would gain more territory of Vichy France, due to their earlier participation in the war. This would mean that the Balkans would be fully consolidated by January 1941 instead of June 1941, when Greece capitulated. In case you're wondering, the Italians would still struggle against the Greeks, as Ticino is not enough to cure the Italian incompetence. So, Germany would be ready to strike the Soviet Union as early as January 1941 instead of June, which is 6 months later. This would be done during the winter, but during the Great Purge, so the Soviet Union would still lose a lot of ground, despite the war starting during the winter. In the summer, the German gains would develop and potentially Leningrad and Stalingrad would fall, as by that time the Soviet Union still wouldn't be ready. But also the Allied Lend-Lease wouldn't be in a massive effect during that time period, so the Soviet Union may suffer greatly. I think that either Leningrad or Stalingrad would for sure fall if Barbarossa were to start 6 months sooner, with Stalingrad being a more valuable object, as it opens up the way for the Caucasus oil fields, which Germany desperately needed, but also the Soviet Union wanted to keep. For the sake of this video, Stalingrad would fall in February 1942, with Germany advancing to the Caucasus to seize Baku. The thing is that the German supply was already running very thin, so advancing this quickly and even deeper into Russia would be worse for the German supply than it was historically. The Germans notoriously lacked a lot of trucks, which problem would still be present in this scenario. Even if they neared the Baku oil fields, the Soviet Union would blow them up, so neither would get them. Iran was also jointly occupied by the Soviet Union and the United Kingdom, so the British and the Soviets can open up a front in the Caucasus and be ready to defend the oil fields. What is for certain is that Germany wouldn't get the Baku oil fields. Either they get close but due to supply are pushed back, or they capture the destroyed oil fields. Either of the two means that Germany wouldn't have any oil, and their downfall would soon begin after that. The tides of the war would turn against Germany in 1943 instead of mid-1942 with the historical Battle of Stalingrad. I would expect that all would go in exactly the same way, as the Soviet Union would recover and get Lend-Lease from the Allies, resulting them in starting to push the Germans back. The Allies would also take North Africa around the same time, so the Axis would be screwed despite their earlier successes. I can summarize this scenario as basically Germany would put up more of a fight, but still they are unable to win the Second World War. Germany may extend the war enough for them to be the first country to get nuked instead of Japan. I expect the Soviet Union to still take Berlin, and they would agree to partition Germany in exactly the same way. Or the deal would slightly more favor the Western democracies rather than the communists. In the peace treaty, I can see Switzerland regaining Ticino, but also even more land as to compensate them for their losses, and also because the Allies wanted to punish the Axis powers of Germany and Italy. The entire peace deal may go in exactly the same way, but I can see Switzerland to not only gain Ticino, but also Aosta from Italy and Constance from Germany, perhaps also getting Vorarlberg from Austria. Switzerland can expand further into Italy, maybe getting Como, but I really doubt that this would happen. Alternatively, Switzerland can take some sparsely populated lands in the Alps that the old Swiss Confederation used to own, but I'm being optimistic for them. Switzerland getting all of this land is not too likely to happen, because the Italians started a civil war in 1943, so the Allies were favorable to the Italians as they kind of surrendered and collaborated earlier, at least the southern half. I would propose these border changes, with Switzerland growing in size, despite them not participating in the war, and the rest of the peace treaty would go in exactly the same way. As a Swiss nationalist, this is my dream come true, so I approve. The Cold War I expect would go in exactly the same way, as Switzerland getting some minor lands I don't think would result in a snowball as they did for Italy gaining Ticino. But going way back, what if Italy actually failed their invasion of Ethiopia, which is not too insane to consider. To find out what could happen, I suggest you take a look at this video, where Italy failed their invasion of Ethiopia in 1935. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you there. Goodbye.